Asleep? Half full, half empty. Good morning. Sounds better. This is too high. I will stand down. Easier. So, when I was hearing that introduction, I was wondering, is that what I'm going to talk about? And I started getting butterflies in my stomach. But what I'm going to share with you is some experiential insights on what I have gone through. And we all live under the same sky, but we have different horizons. So what I experienced may not have been your experience. Your experience might have been different. And I'm happy to learn about that. But let me start with yesterday's presentations. We had two presentations yesterday, Sridhar and Satya, right? And they talked about what? Technology, cloud, blah, blah, blah. Though their starting off the presentation was all about business. So there was a CEO survey that was put up and how CEOs perceive IT guys. 42% is the number I remember. Having said that, everyone starts off saying CIOs have to talk business. CIOs have to talk business. CIOs have to talk business, right? I guess nobody would disagree with that, including the vendors and the consultants and the press. Everyone talks about it. And then what do we get? Technical presentations. So where's the balance? And this blog of mine was triggered by one wonderful consultant who went into a meeting of IT managers who were discussing technology. And he says, oh my God, why are these guys discussing technology? And I'm saying, don't be apologetic about being technologists. That's where most of us began our lives. And we have graduated to connecting with the business. So where does the balance come in? When do we talk technology? When do we talk business? And that is what I'm going to take you through the journey of over the next 20 minutes or so. So what's the starting point? Everyone talks about alignment. And I guess when you start talking about alignment, it is about being in formation, right? Where one acknowledges the other and they are able to determine that, yes, we are going in the same direction. But that was probably a great thing to talk about a decade back. Today, I don't think alignment matters at all. People talk about being proactive because they say you don't wait for the business to tell you what they want. You go and find out what the business wants. And I hear many, many people telling me business doesn't know what they want. But if business doesn't know what they want, what are you going to create? And if proactive is not going to work for you, what is going to work? Somebody came up with the term, one of the interesting consulting companies, amongst the two that all of us talk about, be a partner to the business. Be a partner to the business in what? In running my data center like some of the vendors want us to do, creating that efficiency which is 1% of the total power consumption of a company, or start being innovative, right? We had heard, and we keep on hearing about innovation. What is innovation at the end of it? I had an interesting discussion in the back yesterday with one of the CIOs, and he's saying, India does not innovate. India only does jugaad. I'm saying, but jugaad is also innovation. It's a tactical innovation. It is not innovation in the Western definition of innovation. And that is where we agree to disagree. Finally, a lot of us get labeled support function, right? Of course we support the business. Nothing wrong in supporting something. Having said that, that's not the only and the primary role. And finally, when you go to any of these coaching sessions that happen in many conferences, people talk about being assertive, right? The CIO needs to be assertive. CIO needs to take the bull by the horns and challenge the CxOs on what is happening. And I guess that happens in scenarios where you have a position. So I'm a big fan of Dilbert, by the way. And these are kind of buzzwords everyone picks up, right? CEOs, CMOs. I had a very interesting discussion with the CFO last week. And he says, Arun, what do you think of big data? And I'm scratching my head and trying to figure out what do I tell him. And then I said, big data is a good trend, still hasn't found any connect with the business. And he disagreed with me, and that's okay. We don't have to always agree upon anything. So what we're going to talk about, whether you talk about IT or BT, IT is information technology, BT business technology, the T remains constant, right? T is constant, technology is constant for in our lives at least. Who wants us to change? Maybe sometimes we want to change, but otherwise everyone around us wants us to change without understanding what we do, right? And then the question is, to what extent should we change? Okay? So that's what we will talk about. What is the purpose of our existence? Any ideas? Why does IT exist? Why does BT exist? Any thoughts? For the survival of the business, of course. What else? Why do we exist? To create a better future. Yes, sir, we do a lot of those things. And then I started looking at mission and vision statements of IT departments. Okay? Even they have some of them. And this was one of them. Here's another one. And these are from big organizations and big IT company, IT organizations. And on the other side, there was this very interesting one, which doesn't talk about technology, but implicitly mentions it, to say we will create world-class solutions, etc., etc. Now, this is great, sounds interesting. How does that link back into what the organization is trying to do? Or is it in isolation? I'm sure if you asked any of those CIOs, they'll tell you how they derived this out of the business strategy, mission, vision. The CEO may disagree with that, unless the CEO is part of defining that mission or vision. So if you create your own castle in the air, and there's no foundation, I guess it doesn't really matter. But yes, we do find technology as a consistent theme across. So a long time back, one of the research companies came to me and said, Arun, we can help you define IT strategy, I can help you define alignment, I can help you do this, blah, blah, blah. And they wanted to pay me them 50 lakh rupees for that. They still exist, they still charge you 50 lakh rupees. So it triggered a story in my mind. It was like this, right? So you can figure out who's who. I'm not going to talk about it. So hippo was dancing through the jungle. He was in love with the butterfly. What happens? It stops and asks the wise owl. Okay? The owl advised, great, you must become a butterfly, because if you love the butterfly, you've got to get there. And the hippo felt very happy and went away, but returned and asked, how do I become a butterfly? Right? And this is what the owl said. Right? Correct? So CIO wants to connect with business, goes to a consultant. Consultant, you have to become the business. There is no other way. But how do you become the business? They probably will give you a very lengthy deck of slides and documents, frameworks, etc., etc. And say, if you did all this, it will happen. So I actually took a lot of that and went to my CEO and said, do you want me to do this? He says, don't waste your time. Let's do some real work. Okay? So owls are great. I think they are good to have a drink within the night. Otherwise, don't bother. Okay? Oops. So my thumbs are thicker than this. Okay. So what's the genesis of this current nemesis? And I like the word because it rhymed, and that's how I kept it. So consultants are the primary culprits who want us to stop talking technology and start talking business. And then they come back and give you wonderful hype curves and waves and those kind of things. And they only talk about technology. It's the IT media. I guess it doesn't matter whether it's the internet or print magazine. You pick any magazine or go to any website, they talk about business, IT, CIOs not having evolved. And I always ask them, which CIOs do you talk to here that you never find alignment? It's also vendors, some of whom are here in this room, who talk about CIO not getting aligned and CIO not really doing the right thing. Then what? Then they start talking about power, PUE, I don't even know what it stands for, but power efficiency in the data center. I haven't visited my data center in the last 4 years. Somebody comes to and talks to me about network optimization. I said, what network optimization? Go and talk to my network administrator. I'm the wrong person to be talking about it. Application performance. I guess everyone talks about application performance, but it's a very complex thing where apart from the server, database, application, network, and the user desktop all put together create an experience. What are you trying to optimize? Where? Then somebody says, I have a tool which can tell you exactly where the bottleneck is. Okay? Prove it. The discussion that Vikas said, show me how you're going to do this. That is where things start getting difficult. And of course, there are researchers, there is academia, and of course, even some CIOs who like to flog that because they believe they have evolved beyond everyone else. Happens, right? You go to a place, a guy says, you know what, I've been doing this for so long, let me tell you how to do it. Right? Happens. And finally, all I would say is individually and collectively, they want us to believe that we should give up technology. Right? If we gave up technology, what would we do? I wonder. I tried running businesses in the past, great experience doing the P&L stuff and getting beaten up by the board sometimes to say, why are you not making money? But if the customer doesn't come, how do I make money? Okay. So go and find the marketing guy. Yes, somebody yesterday talked about marketing guys survey and all that, right? How many marketing guys talk to CIOs? Not many, but who they do, they're not talking to us, they're telling us what to do. How many CFOs talk to us? All of them. Sometimes during budget, sometimes outside of the budget, to talk about how much money are you spending. Or why is my accounting system running slow? Why is my closing not happened on the 3rd of the month? But if you guys do not follow discipline of execution, you don't enter your data rightly, how will it happen? IT is only running that technology. So again, goes back to the question, be proactive, solve the problem, etc. And I guess that is where the balance starts appearing to say, how do you balance it? Is there a balance possible? Because business expects us to do all these things, or at least that's what I keep on hearing, so I've started believing it now. And what happened? And these are the things that the IT organizations do. Yes? They follow the hype curve, new technology, social media, cloud, etc., etc. How many of you use clouds, by the way? Not private cloud, public cloud. A decent number. Have you guys been able to figure out how to make hybrids work? Especially in a scenario where part of the organization uses the internal infrastructure, part of it uses the external infrastructure. At least I haven't been able to make it work across all the cloud providers. Forget one. All of them have been given this challenge. Nobody's come back with a solution. Especially when you have to do orchestration across. So you look at the hype curve, you decide what you want to do, and then you are told cost efficiency is important. Of course, cost efficiency is important. And then the CEO says, I want the latest iMac. What happens to cost? Nothing. I had this interesting discussion in my organization recently where people were discussing BYOD in the board, in the management table. And they said, we need the flexibility to take any device and use it. I'm saying, great. Let's talk about what usage you have. And everyone started saying, oh, we look at market data, this, that. I said, let me concisely put it together for you. You use email? Yes. You use spreadsheets? Yes. You use PowerPoint? Yes. Tell me the fourth application you use. And for that, do you need a fancy device? I guess even a tablet or a thin client of any kind would do. But then, with due respect to all the CxOs, you allow them to do a variety of things that you would never allow your team to do. Right? And in that scenario, we then come back to a position where this is reality. Yeah? You go with a proposal to whatever person in the company, and he asks you the question, why do you want to implement this solution? Because it is not his priority. And then you come back and say, okay, but I created this wonderful solution. It is latest, it uses all the wonderful technologies of today, and it will give you the following benefit. I said, but I don't want the benefit. Right? And this is a discussion that happened with one of my proteges not too long ago. And he came to me for advice and he asked me, Arun, what do I do? And I'm saying if the organization is growing the way it is, doesn't have a market problem, is profitable, nobody is going to like disruption. And if nobody likes disruption, why do you want to create disruption? But what do I do then? I'm saying, okay, go and make it their idea. If you make it their idea, they will buy it. After 3 months, he came back. I said, my project is started. So the moment you are proactive, these are some things that you may get challenged with. Incidentally, this guy works in my team. Okay. So if all of us agree and acknowledge that yes, technology is integral part of what we do, not necessarily in every discussion or forum, then comes the question, how do I get to a position where you are labeled as a strategic CIO? And I guess the labeling is a function of what your CEO says, what your users say, what you want to do. I saw a cartoon, very, very interesting one, where this IT department is going to the CEO's cabin and says, sir, we want to be strategic. And he says, first fix the email, then we can talk about strategic. Fix the email first, right? So infrastructure is critical to the perception that you are going to create for the IT organization. It doesn't matter what you deploy. If the last call from the person to fix whatever problem they had was not a satisfactory engagement, you're gone. People talk about application consolidation. People talk about creating reference architectures. And if your applications are broken, you can't transform. And for you to be able to get to the strategic discussion, first you have to go through that ladder. Because if you don't go through that ladder, and it starts with the technology, if you don't understand the technology, not necessarily to the level that I need to know how to move a VM from one cloud to the other, but I should know that it is possible to move a one VM from the other cloud to one cloud to the other. I get into CIO conferences and see presentations which are meant for IT managers. And then I'm starting to wonder, am I the only person who's feeling it? I look around, I see every person playing on their phone, which means it's consistent. So if it is consistent, having said that, if you don't have a strong foundation, and that foundation is not built by the architect, it's built by the people on the ground who actually pile the foundation into the ground, which is your teams, if they're not strong, it's not going to happen. They have to know technology, they have to know how to do things with or without help, and they will come to you when they need help. They're not looking at answers from you. They're looking at guidance and pointing to the right direction where to get the answers from. And that is what CIOs do when they build relationships with the ecosystem. And once you have done that, you suddenly face this dilemma saying, what is the business value of IT? What is the business value of IT? I guess it is relative. It's relative to the company you work for. It's relative to the industry that you work for. But everything is quantifiable. In the past, people created this something called intangible benefits. Intangible benefit, I'm feeling good right now because I'm making this presentation. If it makes no sense to any of you, well, it is not a benefit anymore. So the starting point there is who justifies the business case and budget. A lot of times CIOs get pushed into that role, and I've had the pushback on the other side to say, I'm not going to go to anyone and justify your project. You want it, let's go together. I'll help you do that. But both of us will sign. It's not an IT project. But guess what? When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to talking to the management for approval, it's normally the CIO standing there and making the presentation. We want to implement the CRM system, marketing guy is hiding under the chair. And looking the other way when you're talking about marketing will get the benefit. He's not probably very convinced about it. So whose KRA is it? It's always the KRA of the IT team. You will take it on in your top 5 priorities. Probably your team will have a 50% KRA weightage. Is the business owning it? Is it also on their KRA? And be honest, if it is not, sooner or later you will realize where you are. And then it's become a technology project. And from there comes the wonderful question, what does success look like? Success is on time, on budget, with quality, or people who wanted the system are using it and getting the benefit that they wanted. All of us create business cases when we create these kind of projects. Very few go back to measure them in the timeline that we define. Because when it succeeds, nobody wants to measure it. Everyone says, wow, what a great success. Only when things don't work, people go back to that. You promised this will happen. What happened? Many, many years back, there was a big data warehousing project which I was involved in, cost $1 million. And in those days, $1 million was a lot of money when the dollar was 40. And after one patience to get there. And it happened only when we defined what is success and when we defined it in a way that the business also owned it as a KRA. So my simple submission, don't play with fire if you don't know how to, because to do that, it needs a lot of conviction. So whatever I said in terms of a journey, a discovery, a set of steps that I have experienced or heard, you're free to go and try, but do it only when you have the conviction that you'll be able to pull it off. And you will be able to do that if you already build credibility. And you will build credibility if you take a stand. If somebody gives you a pushback and you are kind of going back, people will roll over you. Nobody is going to listen to you then. So unless you take a stand and build a credibility, from there you get the conviction, only then you will be able to get there. This has been my journey. This has been my experience. Yes, technology matters, business matters in different contexts. So what's the takeaway? I guess the first thing is either you respect your customer or you have a healthy disrespect for your customer. And the reason I say that is respecting a customer does not happen because of hierarchy. It happens based on past experience, based on the discussion you have. And if that discussion does not connect with you, it's okay. The first thing you have to do is stop preaching and start listening. And this applies to everyone. People who don't listen rarely end up creating success. It is very, very true, this cliche that one size does not fit all. Whatever I'm saying here may not work for everyone. People come and ask me, what's your pain area? And I say, I don't have a pain, I'm perfectly healthy. What are your challenges? And if I start talking about my challenges, they have no clue. And I'll give you an example of a discussion I had last week. What are your top 3 business challenges? I said, first challenge for me is DPCO, who has put prices under cap. What are you going to do about it? Second, I have a mandate from the DGFT which talks about serialization. Do you know anything about it? Third, I have a problem in meeting my doctors. They give me only 30 seconds. Can you make it 5 minutes? These are my challenges. Where does mobility, cloud, social media fit into this? I don't know. So I don't have a pain. And please, this is a message to the entire ecosystem. CIOs know what they want. When you get into that discussion, respect their intellectual maturity. They haven't got gray hair or no hair doing nothing. Some of us dye hairs, but that's okay. So if your core is rotten, nothing matters. So after I finished having all these discussions, I was thinking, how do I conclude my presentation? And I felt this is the best way to describe it. What is this? It's a solution that IT built and nobody used. It fell apart. I had written a long time back about something called IT orphanage. All the applications that IT builds nobody uses goes into that orphanage, right? Does this discussion give everyone the freedom to involve in geek talk? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. So when I talk to my network administrator, I'm having a very different level of discussion versus when I'm talking to the head of sales or the head of supply chain. Separate those discussions. It's important to create those boundaries. Don't be Jekyll and Hyde, but create those boundaries. And adapt to the context, because if we don't adapt to the context, you'll get lost. And when you're lost, then people talk about buzzwords. We saw lots of rain yesterday, and buzzes for the bees, right? I got lots of feedback on my blog, the one that I based this presentation on, and I'll share a few of them for you. So one of them said, most CIOs are facing this same challenge, and I don't see the war ending soon in terms of where the balance should happen. But it's not about a fine balance, it's about the balance going up and down. Sometimes it's more technology, sometimes it's more business. I guess you can read it. I'm not going to read it out for you. But this, somebody again came back with that proactive word to say, unless you're proactive, nothing is going to happen. And while all of us have to have the pulse of the business of IT is IT. Do you agree with that statement? The business of IT is IT. Yes. Okay. This is wonderful consultant statement. It came from the country head of one of the top 2 consulting companies. And this came from a CEO. Not an Indian CEO, but a CEO of a big retail chain in Australia, who wrote back and said, I believe the problem lies with the business leaders, not with the technology leaders. He is probably one of those guys who should be on the Himalayas giving gyan, but I wish his tribe increases. So, like you can see, one page of a document which talked about business and technology created so many different perspectives for people. I'm sure it created different perspectives for all of you. At least I hope I was able to provoke something. And then comes the last part of the presentation, people always say, do you have any questions? And I loved this Dilbert for that. Any questions, right? That's what you asked for? Thank you very much. I will take any questions related to the presentation. Yeah. Both. The IT head is the key influencer to the priority definition. If you relinquish that role, business will decide and give it to you to execute. So let me give you one example. Cipla, I joined 1 year back. From the time I joined, before I joined the company to the time I was going through my induction, everyone asked me only one question: when are we going live on SAP? We did not have SAP, we had not bought SAP, we had done nothing. So my question was, if you guys wanted it so badly, why didn't you do it yourself? Why are you waiting for me to do it? Right? Now, who's taking that decision? Who's going to prioritize that? I could have very well said, okay, I'm going to get started. Give me the money. This is what it costs. This is the scope. It would have become a wonderful, big, monolithic, pink elephant IT project. And 12 months later, people would have been wondering, why did we spend so much money? I spent 9 months, the first 9 months in my company, trying to get people to feel hungry for SAP. What will change for them? Acknowledging that I'm willing to change. Then I started the project. We are now 5 months into the project. So far, we have missed no deadlines. There are 70 business people who have given up their day jobs, sitting there doing it, and the mandate was, whoever is your right-hand man, give me your right hand. वो गब्बर सिंह वाला हाथ मुझे दे दे, और अगर हाथ नहीं दे सकते हो तो मत आओ प्रोजेक्ट पे. It was really a filmy discussion that happened. People protested, CEO got involved, chairman was called in. How can Arun ask for this kind of thing? And I'm saying, if you don't believe in this project, and if you're not willing to put your resources, we are not doing this project. We live the way we are, in the rain, with a broken umbrella. So be it. So, who decided at the end of it? The business decided, I influenced it. It may not happen all the time. Sometimes you also get a hand-me-down to say, you better do this. It happens typically for the CEO's favorite project. In every company, there's a CEO's favorite project, which will always have funding available. The CEO will always come for the review meeting, and nobody is interested about it. There you have limited choices. Any other questions? Yes. Yep. Yep.
You were advocating technology as a base on which CIOs stand,
Yep.
and they peep into business.
Correct.
So is that the guilty feeling that made you say that?
So Sanjeev, my answer is in the second last slide, which says be contextual in your discussion. When you're talking to somebody who's selling you a server farm, you have to bloody well know what the server farm is all about. But you can't go and be talking to your supply chain head about server farm. You are going to have a discussion there which is more on what is your on-time in full deliveries, what is happening to your upstream supply chain and downstream supply chain. He doesn't care about your server farm. So when I talk to business people, I find my business people throwing more technology at me than I'm throwing at them. And I always keep on telling them, it doesn't matter which technology you use. You will get your answer, you will get your result. Don't think about technology, think about business. We had a recent case where a new person joined our US operations as the country head. And he's saying, Arun, I don't know technology. I said, do you know English? He said, of course. I said, can you write your business problem in English? And if you can, I'll help you with the solution. So after that, for the next 3 months, every time he stood up in the management meeting and says, here is my conversation in English, and he would look at me. What happened at the end of it? Today, US is way ahead in the journey of that solution design as compared to some of the other markets. Because this guy has been very, very clear on what he wants. He's not thinking about technology. He's not thinking about technology constraints that he understands. Because everyone has a limit to what they know about technology, even all of us. Then we go to the experts. We are connected to the experts, they are not. They only read in a Time magazine and Newsweek magazine which talks about one page of the current technology trend. That's all they know. Then the next line in his department said, "Are we doing cloud?" I said, "Does it matter to you?" That's a discussion. We are not smashing technology. We are only ensuring that the solution we create is not limited by the other person's understanding of technology. And the other person's understanding of technology may be anything from 0 to 99% of what you know. It's more in the single digits and double digits, normally most of the time less than the room temperature. Okay? Any other questions before somebody decides to throw me out? Yes. Okay. I didn't see you. Next time I'll keep a rear view mirror. Thank you.